so much for having us, and also I'm loving all your modular synths in the back.
I'm in my studio. Got a bunch of stuff going.
Love it. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to Backline and to your fans. There's a ton of folks just hopping in. People were really excited about this conversation. So just wanted to thank you again. And I always like to start these conversations off with just asking, like, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well today, actually. Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, got a lot of good
awesome.
stuff going on these days, so I'm feeling positive.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Well, as you know, with Backline, we talk all about mental health all the time. That's what we do. So
hmm
I want to just kick it off with asking you, like, why is talking about mental health important to you?
I mean, that's such a big question. I feel that I am one of the people that can pretty easily identify as someone that's struggled quite a bit in my life. I think going back to a fairly early age, in a way that I don't think I could necessarily describe then, but I think as I've gotten older, I could sort of see all these ways that, experiences I had in my life, you know, family, friends, just what all that kind of stuff, genetic stuff, all these things had an impact on sort of how I processed the world and the ways that became challenging for me. Some of those became pretty big um, weights for me for a very long time, and I think it was difficult for me to have so many periods of my life where I could look at them and feel that somehow my potential as a person who, I knew people loved me, I knew people liked me, appreciated things that I made or did, and yet I still felt somehow like I was not living up to what that could be, and wasn't, often I was not enjoying those experiences or being able to really even absorb them. And so kind of, for survival, a lot of my story, like privately, but also in the context of music and what it's been to be a part of Animal Collective, to be making my own music, has been trying to figure out for myself um, how to really enjoy being here. We get this chance, this one chance to be here, and I like it. I've always liked it, but it's felt like a struggle, and so I've had to work really hard to figure that out. And I think, one of the ways that I struggled was feeling as though I had any agency to use my own voice, literally and sort of metaphorically, even after Animal Collective had, in some ways, in part because of Animal Collective, I actually felt really kind of like my voice didn't matter as much. Dave and Noah are so brilliant as songwriters and as vocalists. So that literally felt like this kind of like, I can't, I can't do that. And so I kind of had to push myself to do that. And in doing so, I didn't really feel like I had, what came out of me was me trying to write about my experience, or my ways to figure my way through some of these really dark or difficult sort of mental habits and tendencies that I had. And I, in some ways, was actually very ashamed to share that, but it felt like the only thing I had to share. So I kind of had to. It was like sort of that or give up. And I've found over the years, and I continue to be surprised happily, that a lot of people seem to really appreciate that and have heard that and have, have found value in that. And I think, when I was, my whole life, I've kind of been someone that felt like when a friend was in crisis, I was often one of the people that knew how to sort of sit with them and be in that crisis and try and understand what was going on and try and offer, perspective, guidance, support, logistical support, any of those things. And I know how valuable that is to people in my life that I've done that for, and I've experienced how valuable that is for me. So I think finding myself in the position of being someone now who, it has a more public voice and makes music that speaks to people on those terms, at least at times, it and gotten the feedback that when I do share about this stuff, it's really helpful and supportive to people. I know that we kind of need all the support we can get. I mean, I uh, in my own story, I mean, it's been everything from, direct things like getting therapy or having someone really show up in a moment of crisis. And sometimes it is the smallest little things, that something you hear in a song or read in a poem, or just the way someone acts at a grocery store, that can sometimes spark a shift in the way that you you do things. So it seems like if there's any value in me sharing about my own experience, then it's useful because yeah. So
I mean, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I feel that what you were dealing with, a lot of folks in the music industry, just creatives in general, often struggle with maybe just like that self doubt or trying to find your voice in a space where it could be really hard to. So, how do you prioritize? You kind of hit on this a little bit, but how do you prioritize your mental health in your day to day? Like, have you found any modalities, any practices that have helped you out?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a long. I'm not diagnosed as ADHD, so I don't want to throw that out there casually. But I think increasingly as I read about it and understand it, and have had therapists that can't diagnose me have pointed that out. I'm not someone that has had like any one thing be the like I don't find a thing and then I'm like, well, that's it. I figured it out. I kind of everything is changing all the time in my consciousness. So it's been many, many years of ups and downs and finding a lot of different things that have worked and not worked. So where do I mean, honestly, a big one for me, I didn't think I would start with this one, but I stopped drinking about 8 years ago. And for most of my life, I actually would not have categorized myself as someone that had a drinking problem.
Hmm.
In hindsight, sometimes when I tell stories about how I did drink to people, they're sort of like, it sounds like you didn't have a problem, but like you definitely, like I drank a lot. And I think one of the reasons why I stopped is because I just started to feel like it is so difficult for me in the day to day to just normalize my state of being. And I just was feeling, there was already so many things I was throwing at myself that were making my life feel in upheaval all the time, emotionally, internally, even when things externally were fine or okay or even great. And I found that eliminating that thing, and it was not even a choice to be sober. I mean, I can kind of go into that. It was more about just feeling like that particular. So that's one. I guess I'm bringing that up because it's one very obvious and clear example of something that I guess uh, I regularly take stock of sort of what I'm doing with my life and how I'm spending my time and what I'm doing. And when I feel like something is going off the rails, I kind of go like, okay, what is not happening right now? And it could be in that period of my life, it was like, I think it's maybe that I drink every day. Like sometimes it's just a beer or two beers, but I think what it's doing to me is actually really not helping me do what I want to be doing really. And that's making me feel bad, like throughout the day or the week, because I'm kind of like, oh, instead of getting off work at 5 and going to my studio and working on something, I like met up with a friend and had a beer, and then I felt kind of tired, and then I watched the movie and some of that day was gone, and it just was like, that doesn't feel like it's serving me. Like what do I really want from this life? Because I know that it's again, we only have so much, we have this one life, and it's as I get older, I see how short it is. Even looking at, my grandfather just passed away at 99,
Mm.
and in some ways I'm like, my God, he was longer than I've been alive. It would take me to get to be as old as he is. And at the same time, I look back at the last 25 years and it's been a blink. So I'm aware that the next 25 years will also in some ways feel like a blink. And so it's my job to be here and take each day as presently as I can. And so I think finding things that bring me back to that as much as possible and remind me of what my kind of core goals and what's important to me every day, like that stuff. So any one modality, no. I mean, I've been in and out of therapy for most of my life. I have found that at times incredibly useful. I've at times found it incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
um, I have shied away personally from most pharmaceutical medications. It's not felt like the right thing for me. I do not condemn it for other people. I think there's absolutely a time and a place for that. It hasn't, when I have tried, it hasn't felt like the right thing. I've gotten into a lot of somatic therapy in recent years, and I found that to be really helpful. Uh, Parts work and EMDR and just sort of more body related ways of approaching what's going on mentally. Connecting it to the body has been really helpful. But for me, playing music and I mean, it's not as simple as that, because I've gone through periods where playing music has felt terrifying and unpleasant and scary, and actually evidence as to how I'm not who I want to be. But I think realizing that I'm sorry that I ramble.
No,
There's
please. This is great.
some people, I don't know. Yeah, I'm outing myself a little bit. I did a lot of theater when I was in high school, and when I went to college, I initially fell into it because I was good at it, but I always felt like I sort of had teachers and directors that were like wanting me to do stuff, and then when I did it well, and there was an aspect of it that I enjoyed, but I always felt a little bit out of step with that world. And I had a teacher who was kind of one of my greatest theater teachers who I would talk to about this all the time. And one day he just said, Josh, if and the only reason to keep doing this is if you cannot imagine your life without it.
Mm.
If you can, like, stop, because it's brutal. You're going to get rejected. You're going to be in, productions with people you don't like. There's nothing about, there's no guarantee about it. So if you can get out, like, get out. And it was that simple for me for that, because I did not need it in my life. Music has not felt that way, and I've had to come to terms with the fact that a life without music is something that I don't know how to do.
Mm.
So when it became clear to me that I was having a harder time doing it than I wanted to, and that it was actually difficult, like, it was like, what's going on? Like, I'm not walking away, I can't leave, and yet every time I sit down at an instrument, I just start to tear myself apart.
Mm.
Something's wrong. So I had to really dig into that, and the ways to get through that, some of it was just white knuckling it. I just was like, well, I don't have a choice, I have to do this. Or taking really big risks. I did some stuff in my kind of early solo career in like 2010, 2011, that were terrifying choices to make, that I felt completely ill prepared to do, felt completely out of my depth, and yet I kind of knew if I didn't try, that I'd feel like even more of a failure. So I had to kind of, some of it was pushing myself. Some, I don't know. I'm not answering your question very directly, but I just think
No,
I think
you.
it's a lot of things. There's no, for me, there hasn't been like a one tool that's kind of like, or even a few identifiable tools. I've gone through phases where meditation's been really helpful, and then I go through years where I don't meditate at all. It just,
I mean, I
um,
think it's so important what you touch on is that mental health is such a journey. There isn't one thing that will work for your whole life. It might just be in moments. I too have found that. I'm an artist as well, and a lot of what you said resonated, especially when you're in it, you're in music, but it's not feeling good to create, or you're terrified to create, or there's just that disconnection there. And that, you've been doing this for a while, and you have such a distinct, unique sound. How do you tap into creativity? Do you chase inspiration? Do you let it find you? Yeah, you were talking about white knuckling it. Like, what did that look
yeah.
like for you?
Well, when I was, one of the things that I think I struggled with in my, I've been playing music, since I was the youngest little thing I can imagine. And, as I came out of my teens and into our 20s, and, what we were doing as a group was starting to feel like a thing. I love doing it, but I reached a point where it was actually pointed out to me in a way that was not easy to hear at the time, that the only time I seemed to work was when I felt like inspired, and or like, you show up for practice, but you don't practice, you don't like. And I realized over time, and some of it was really hard to kind of face, was that I didn't know how to relate to it unless I felt that like big spark.
Mm.
um and I think I started, and I would read things about, like, what's the classic Einstein thing, like, it's inspiration is 90% perspiration or whatever. I was like, I understand. And I'd look at other people around me and sort of see what they were doing. And I realized I had not developed a very good working muscle. I would have moments of feeling really inspired. And if like my dopamine was surging and everything was clicking, then like, yeah, I'd come up with something really cool. But if I wasn't, I would just shut down and I wouldn't do anything for days, months, And
Hmm.
I started to realize that for me, if I wanted to be doing this, that wasn't a functional way or I don't believe it's a functional way, at least for me. Maybe there are people that do work that way and it works out great. But I think for me, it felt like the lesson was, there's some version of, I need to show up in some regular way, no matter how I'm feeling. I can feel, you know, exhausted, depressed. This is a confusing thing, because there are also days where actually the thing is to get up out of the studio and go for a hike, and that's also, so it's like I've struggled with, like, how do you know, is today the day that I'm supposed to just like, but I do think there's some amount of it that's like, yeah, there are periods where I'm feeling really energized and really inspired, by ideas that I have or sounds that I'm making in the studio, and they are just like, they're just triggering the next thing. And it's like, oh,
Mhm.
right, like this sound that I discovered with this collection of pedals and a piano and a drum machine is like inspiring me to, oh, this chord progression feels really good, and oh, like that makes me think of these lyrics, and like it all just starts happening. And it does happen that way sometimes, but when it's not happening like that, I still for the most part show up.
Mm.
I try to kind of do it Monday through Friday at this point. Like it's kind of office hours. And, there are days where it is inspiration, and there are days where I am fixing cables, or
Yeah.
there are days where I am, seeing if there's gear that needs to be fixed, or my hard drive needs to be cleaned up, or, whatever. Or I'm working on a mix for somebody and I'm not feeling like inspired about how it sounds, but there's cleanup work I have to do. And if I do that and make sure that I'm staying on it, I actually find my mental health feels better, because I get to the end of the day and I don't feel like, God damn, that song's not moving where I want it to go. I feel like, okay, cool. I clocked in and I got some stuff done. And I know that tomorrow, if I, or next week, if I am feeling a surge of inspiration, I'm not going to be, oh God, like all these cables are a mess, or like, where's that thing? I'm going to be like, right, I've organized, that's why all these pedals are like lined up on the wall. It's not because I'm trying to show them off. It's because my brain works better that way. And I know that if I see them all in front of me, when I have an idea and I just look up and I'm like, oh, right, that is
Yeah.
very different than if it's all in a box in the corner. And so sometimes my way of working is to, yeah, come and like spend some time building shelves, because I know that's actually how I'm going to make sure that I am in a better flow next time. And that has a impact on my mental health, because it makes it so that when I come into the space, I feel like I know what's going on, and I feel like if I do have an idea, I can kind of immediately go to it. And if I don't, that's okay. But so yeah, did that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. And I think again, that's just so important for folks to hear. Just show up. Some
It's
days, like you
huge.
said, you're going to feel creative and energized, or other days, maybe you just need to be immersed in the space. But then also something you said, which is also really important, is like go outside, take a hike, go be inspired, and
Totally.
come back into your space.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to know, because I do, I don't have the answer. There are days where I think that instinct to go outside is an avoidant instinct. It's me actually trying to run away from something that I need to do. And there are days where it's actually me going like, dude, you got to change. You got to just do something different. Like get you're like spinning right now, and you just need
Yeah.
to do something different to get out of it. And the truth is, I don't know which. There are days where I don't know. But I find that at least if I stay in a kind of state of conscious decision making and movement, it usually leads to something positive and keeps my brain not getting caught in the mires of wherever it goes, when it goes sour, which it still likes to do sometimes.
I mean, I just think that that's so important for folks to hear, though, is again, just show up. And you use the word movement, which I think is so, so important for creative folks, because if you are feeling some sort of purpose and if you are feeling some sort of progress and movement, like you said, it's less likely that your brain will go either into a depressive state or to an anxious state. So it really is just showing up in the space. You can't predict what's going to happen or come of it. Maybe nothing will, but you're
Yeah.
at least trying. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned a few times that you're very self-aware of time, and that we only have so much of it. So what does living a fulfilling life mean to you? What does that look like to you?
It's a really, I'm still discovering it. I think it's a really nonsensical kind of mix of completely letting go of like an expectation of what it's supposed to look like, and kind of being in a state of acceptance and gratitude for what is, while at the same time remembering to focus on the things that actually hold meaning for me. And I mean, some of those things, yeah, I mean, music is a huge thing. Like my life feels like something's wrong when that's not there. So I need to kind of work on that. You know, r- Really standard things, friendships, relationships, family. I think putting energy into that and making sure that those relationships feel positive, and when they don't feel positive, try and figure out what needs to be fixed. Because I think that having, having the support of people in your life is just huge. And when you don't take care of it, it can go away, so, or it can, yeah, it's like a garden or something. It's like you kind of have to kind of keep it going so that it feels, um, using my body, which I'm actually not great at doing right now. And as I'm getting like later into my 40s, I'm really noticing the changes of what's actually possible. But it's really important to me to be able to, to hike and to exercise and move my body. I feel like if I don't do that, something starts to kind of go off the rails.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just value it. It's like something I really enjoy. Like since I've been a kid, I've always liked being outdoors and yeah, and moving my body, like literally just moving my body. Um, um,
Outside of music, and maybe you touched on it already, but outside of music, what brings you joy?
I mean, all sorts of stuff. I don't know. Being with friends, seeing friends have wins, helping other people, with things, animals. My cats are great, but other people's animals, I generally light up around animals. Um, yeah, nature. I don't know. Um,
I love that. I know we have just a few minutes left. I always like to ask other artists, what are you listening to lately that has inspired you, influenced you, or just excited you?
there's so many things, and one of my I'm totally okay with it now. One of the things that seems to happen to me, my brain works, is when anybody asks me this question, I go blank. But
Totally,
so
yeah.
I feel like I have a broad amount of answers, like, or type of answer I could give. One, it feels a little on the nose right now because it's become kind of really popular. But the Cameron Winter record has
Oh
really,
yeah, yeah.
like, kind of stunned me. It was something that I came across from, when I was, yeah, at some point, like on kind of the tail end of working on, the last Panda Bear record. Noah brought up, that record, and I hadn't heard it yet. And when I did, there's something about it that feels, I don't know, it feels exciting and inspiring and fresh in a way that I don't even know if I could really explain yet. But that's been really cool. Um, I guess touching on another one that, is maybe a topic that we didn't get into. So, um, in the context of psychedelic therapy, which is something that I have been involved in with a clinic, in a very safe environment with professionals, John Hopkins, who's on Domino as well, made a record called
Yeah.
Music for Psychedelic Therapy, and I've used it in the correct context, and I've been really stunned at it as a piece of work in that context. I've actually been meaning to write him and be like, I kind of like really impressed with the way you brought this together. So,
Wow.
not a new piece of music, but something that, yeah, recently kind of had an impact. So.
Oh my gosh, awesome. I'm very excited to check that album out. I guess last question, what would you say to, you mentioned earlier in the conversation that you had a teacher tell you if you can imagine your life outside of this, then go outside of it. Basically stop because this is going to be a hard journey. What would you say to artists maybe listening in right now who are at the start of their journey? Would you have anything that that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean that's a really, I mean, I think that's an important topic, and I think it's a really delicate one too, because I think that it's a really vulnerable thing to want to express yourself artistically, especially whether that's, whatever it is, writing, painting, music, theater, acting, whatever it is. I know it's really, really scary and hard, and I think I've seen, I had people in my life, um, people understand my story. It's like post Starberry Jam, I stepped away from the band. It was a really bad time. I was not in a good place, and the band was skyrocketing with Merriweather, and that was making me feel even worse, in ways I can't even really express. And I absolutely had people in my life be like, maybe you should be doing something else.
Mm.
And that was a really like, it was a hard thing to hear, and at moments felt like this really scary, like, oh my God, am I supposed to step away? And I really thought about it, and I really tried in some ways to just be like, is there a version of my life that doesn't, and it wasn't about Animal Collective, it was just about having a venue to be able to to express myself that way. So it's really scary. And I think I've met people or seen people who are coming to me to be like, should I do this? Should I not? Is this okay? Is this not okay? And I never want to say anything other, on some level, anything other than like, express yourself, like absolutely do. But I also know that there is a fine line between torturing yourself unnecessarily, and putting it's not an easy thing to do. And there is really no, I'm one of the lucky ones. I got to do my childhood dream, and I surpassed that dream, a, a decade and a half ago. Like it's like we're just so far into icing at this point, I can't even describe. And that's not something everybody gets to experience. So I think sometimes when I meet people who talk about wanting to make art, I feel like it's a combination of wanting to, there's like the internal motivation to do it. There's the inspiration, and there's a sense that you have something to put out there, which I think is really important to listen to. And I think sometimes it's rooted in wanting to be like something that you're seeing. And of course, that's a part of it. I looked up to so many musicians and emulated so many things. And I think that's an important part of the process. So it's like, I don't know how to answer this question, but because I think it's a really delicate thing for each person to figure out. But there are times where I've met people where I've had a suspicion that there might be a place where they're pushing themselves to want to be something they think they want to be, and it isn't really maybe the right thing for them, which is of course a hard thing for anyone to hear. And I don't know if I ever could say it to anyone's face, because I could be wrong. People said it to me and they were wrong, and so it was like up to me to have to go like, you're saying this, but I know I can't let go, so I have to keep pushing, and everyone has the right to do that. But I think it's really easy, especially in the attention age that we're in, which is even more intense than it was, when I was, for those of you who are not as old as me, like growing up in the 80s and 90s, like the attention thing was there for sure. Like you saw people on MTV, or you saw indie bands that were kind of like, but it felt slow or something. There was a slowness to it. And the way that it feels now, I feel overwhelmed by it. And that idea that like I could do a thing and it could blow up, and I could, I want people to see me. I want people to see me. I want people to see me. I want to be like that. I want to be like that. I think that's a really toxic
Yeah.
thing. And I think it's really damaging to a lot of people. I think it's hard for me, and I'm in it. Like I already like won the lottery, and I feel like it's challenging. And so if you haven't won the lottery, or you may never win the lottery in that sense, I think it's really scary. And so I think it's something to just, the best thing that I can offer is just to try and be true to like the internal story about who you want to be, and not be thinking so much about like what you wish you could be, or what you think you're supposed to be, or something. I don't know. That's a clumsy answer to something I think is actually a really delicate and vulnerable topic, because I think it can, I don't know.
I think that that's a perfect answer. I think it's so true that, I mean, you really have to kind of take inventory for yourself and assess, am I doing this for the right reasons? Like, what is your why? And, hopefully you can be anchored in true self-expression and being who you fully are, rather than trying to be something or trying to attain this level of success, or even success. What does that even mean nowadays? It's such a moving target. So I think it's so important what you're saying, of making sure that you're in it for the right reasons, and that you're staying true to who you are.
Yeah.
I know we're over time, so I just want to thank you so much for sharing your afternoon with Backline. We are so grateful for artists like you, who are open to talking about mental health, because we just need to destigmatize and keep the conversation going. So really want to thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. And I'm realizing as we're talking that there've been like just a scrolling thing of people saying, and I haven't caught any of it. And it seems like people saying nice things, or maybe even asking questions. And thanks for everyone for being here. Yeah.
This is awesome. Thank you so much, Joshua. Please have a great day, and hope to see you and talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye, Tara.
All right.
Likewise.
Bye.
Bye.